can you get to the point where you're so sold out for Christ that nothing even matters anymore? You're willing to sacrifice anything. You're willing to do anything that God puts on your heart. You're willing to be bold. How do you get to that point? It is in the Bible when Paul was on fire for God, when he was so sold out that he was willing to do anything. And it's because he realized where he had came from. He will realize how much of a sinner he was. But even when he was a sinner, he was still bold and passionate for the things that he was doing. He came to Christ. It made it even easier for him to spread the message, to be bold, to be able to be willing to go to jail and get crucified or get punished for the things that he was doing. It's because he realized he was a sinner and he was doing it for the world, so he knew he could do it for the truth. So if you want to be sold out for Christ and willing to sacrifice anything, whether it be small or big, you have to realize how much you were forgiven. Remember your testimony. That is the beauty of remembering your testimony, because when you remember your testimony, that is when you're going to be willing to make more sacrifices. That's when you're going to be willing to stay on fire for God. Because we all know when we first came to Christ, when we first encountered Christ, we were radical, we were on fire. But then as time went by, we start going back to the things of the world more and more and more as time goes by. So that's why it's important to remember your testimony and realize how much you were forgiven. That is when you're going to be able to make those sacrifices. And so that's why in this video, I'll be talking about how you can live a life of basically not caring about anything but God and really putting God first in your life. Because I promise you, once you do that, once you seek the kingdom first, put God first in your life, everything else will be added on to you, and your life will be way less stressful. You'll have way more peace going into this life, and you'll know exactly what God is calling you to do, because you'll hear his voice. You'll really understand and get the revelation of what God is trying to do in your life. And so the first way in order to get rid of any stress or any anxiety and just put God first in your life is by preparing. You have to really understand what you're getting yourself into, because stress is simply a lack of preparation. The only reason you stress, the only reason you get anxious about anything is because you weren't prepared. Think about you go to school and you have a test. If you prepare for that test, you're not going to be stressed. But if you aren't prepared for that test and you didn't do the studying and you didn't make sure that you were going to pass that test, then you're going to be really stressed. Same thing with a relationship. If you didn't prepare for a date or something like that, you're going to be really nervous on how that date is going to go because you haven't prepared. And so that's why it's important that you prepare for this walk with Christ. And the way that you do that is by truly understanding God and by reading his word. God gives us the way, basically how this life is going to be. There's so many stories that we can relate to because the Bible is relatable to now. It's relatable for every time because history repeats itself. Humans continue to do the same thing. We continue to get tempted the same way because the devil uses the same tricks. And we continue to have to go through the same things, no matter if it's in a different scenery or a different time. It doesn't matter what it is. We always have to go through the same things. And so if you prepare your mind for the things you're going to have to go through for Christ, but you know that there's a reward on the other side, then you're going to be more likely to be sold out for Christ, because you know that there is a reward on the other side and you know that that is the best way to go. But on the contrary, if you don't know what you're going to have to go through in this walk with Christ, you are going to give up on God, because you don't know that you have to sacrifice certain things. You don't know how you have to surrender. You don't know you have to go through trials and tribulations before you can start getting blessed by God. You don't know why you go through trials and tribulations. And so that's why it's so important to gain knowledge and seek for wisdom like gold. That's what Solomon says, because once you understand this walk with Christ, that is when it makes it 10 times easier to sacrifice and be bold. And that's the same thing with even going up and with someone and spreading the gospel or different stuff like that. You may be more scared if you're not prepared, if you don't have the things to say to someone, if you don't know exactly what to say or how to say it, or even bring up a conversation about God in the first place, then because you're not prepared for that conversation, that is when you're going to be more nervous, more scared, even more stressed. So make sure that you are being prepared with anything in this walk of Christ and anything in life, because when you are prepared, that is when you won't have to stress as much. That's when you won't have all this anxiety, and that's when you will learn how to trust God more. Another way to be so sold out for Christ is by realizing that his way is better and realizing that he is truly the truth, by having faith. because the word even says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And when you have true faith in God, that's when you'll be so sold out for him. When you realize he's real, when you realize he resurrected, he died and resurrected, and you really believe in your heart that he's your Lord, that is when you will truly start making that change in your life and being bold and surrendering everything for Christ, because you realize that nothing else truly matters in this life except for him. We know that the word says faith without works is dead. And so when you have faith, you'll produce works naturally. You'll start sacrificing things naturally. You'll start actually living for Christ naturally, because you actually have faith in your heart. You believe in your heart. And so if you are struggling to sacrifice certain things, it's because you are lacking faith in God. And in order to grow your faith in God, you have to continue to build that relationship with him. You do that by learning more about his spirit. You learn more about his word, being on fire for him and delighting in him. That's why the word says, delight in the Lord. He'll give you the desires of your heart, because when you put your faith in God, he will start to give you different desires. He'll give you the things that you are supposed to desire instead of desiring the things of the flesh. Yes, delight in the Lord. Actually be happy to read the word. Be happy to go to church and start building your faith. Be happy to start building your faith, because when you build your faith, that's when naturally you won't have to actually even try your hardest to read the word. It won't be like a chore, but you will actually want to do those things naturally because you delight in him and you want to build your faith. So we even see this with Paul. When Paul had got encountered with Christ, his faith increased, obviously, because if Jesus pops out right in front of you, your faith is going to be like on fire. You're going to be on fire. And so when Jesus was telling him to do everything, even when he got blinded, and he got to a different level of faith because of everything that Jesus put him through. And he remembered that his whole entire life. It stuck with him because of the encounter that he had. So even if you want to encounter with Christ, you still can to this day. There's plenty of people, even me, who had an encounter with Christ, and God knows how to encounter you in your life that will spike your faith. It may be something as simple as a video, maybe as something as someone coming up and talking to you, but there is an encounter in everybody's life that sets you on fire for God and builds your faith to another level. And then that is when you are going to be even more on fire for God than you already are. So pray for that encounter. Pray that God helps you with your unbelief, because if you're not willing to surrender something, that means you have unbelief. So pray that God encounters you in a way that helps you believe more, that helps you have more faith. And then that is when you will be so sold out for God. Lastly, the last way to be sold out for Christ and be willing to let go of anything in this world is by trusting him. If you're not willing to let go of something in this world, it's because you're not trusting God in that area that he will fulfill your want or fulfill you or satisfy you in this world. You think that what you're doing is more important than what God has for you. So if you're not willing to surrender social media, not willing to surrender a certain TV show that is God is convicting you about, willing to surrender someone in your life, then that's basically you saying, God, this will fulfill me, but you won't. I'm not going to surrender this because I don't think you're going to fulfill this area in my life. You are basically saying that. So that's why it's important to trust God with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways, and then he will make your path straight. That's why God says trust with all the heart. Because if we don't trust him with all our heart, we're going to procrastinate on things. We're not going to be willing to surrender certain things. We're going to be trapped in our own bondage because we think that, oh, if I do this in my life, then I am going to be fulfilled. Basically, if I keep this thing in my life that I'm not willing to surrender, then I am going to be fulfilled in this. And in reality, once you let it go, that is when God will start to move in your life. And then that is when you will be able to grow to new levels of faith. But if you're not willing to surrender, you're going to be stagnant. You're going to be stuck in the same spot until you're willing to surrender. You're going to continue to struggle with temptation, struggle reading the word, struggle to grow to new levels of faith because you're not willing to let it all go and be all in for Christ. So if you really want to put God first in your life, you have to number one, trust him. You have to trust him because trust is the root of our relationship. You can't have a relationship with anyone you don't trust, and that's including God. So if you don't trust God, you're not going to be able to have that relationship with him. So you have to believe in your heart, trust in him. And then that is when you'll be so sold out for him. So I hope this video was a blessing to you. I hope this video edified you. And if you are struggling to grow in Christ and give your all to Christ, then I've actually made a free course helping you grow closer to Christ, helping you overcome temptation, just helping you walk in your purpose. If you want to join that, the link is down in the description. And if you want to see how God showed up in my life so that I was able to go all in, how he encountered me and changed me, I've attached that video at the end of this video. So if you want to see that, it should pop up any moment now. But if not, appreciate you for watching. I appreciate all the support. Also, if you want to support, the link is down below. If not, till next time, as usual, y'all stay blessed.